De'Aaron Fox.
It was just fancy. It was saucy. That's what they would call it. The move, he didn't shake Steph, but the move was real saucy.
The advanced stats are going to say.
A long, noisy out is what that was.
The advanced stats are going to say, nope, not a good play. But we all know the talent shown there, high ceiling for that young point guard.
Yeah, the ceiling is definitely high for De'Aaron Fox. And it's just because you look at this year, he is shooting the three-point shot a lot better than he did last year. I think last year he was around a 30% three-point shooter. This year he's up to 38, 39%. And what that does is it stretches the defense out. And in pick and roll, you have to guard him so much differently now. You can't go under. You can't confidently switch because he's able to take advantage of those mismatches. He is a next-level athlete when we talk about speed, quickness, and explosion. And if you put the average big on him, he's going to go by them very, very quickly. And if you give him the three-point shot, he's now knocking it down with confidence. Buddy Hield, De'Aaron Fox, watch out. This backcourt in maybe 2 to 3 years might be considered one of the best in the league.
And you sprinkle in Bogdanovic, his ability to make big plays. This is a league pass must-watch every night, this team.
I love watching Sac on League Pass.
So you mentioned those two guys because De'Aaron Fox and Buddy Hield, they're very good, going to be, the ceiling is there, right? But Bogdanovic and Bjelica, those two guys are playing at a level to make them competitive now. How important what do they bring to the table? Is it just the outside shooting? Is it defense? What is it that they're doing that makes this team competitive on a night-in, night-out basis?
Well, Bjelica's playing so well, you almost can't blame him now for walking away from his commitment to Philadelphia. There in the beginning didn't look very good. And he has played at such a high level, and you said this earlier, it's kept Bagley off the floor to a huge degree because he can fill in so many of the gaps for that team. What Bogdan does that I think is really critical is he's just a stone-cold winner. And every team that's going to be good in this league needs to have an elite star-type role player. And Bogdan's a little bit more than a role player, but what he is clutch. And when you need him to make a big play at a big moment, that's what he tends to do. It's what he did at Fenerbahce, and it's what he continues to do at Golden One Center.
Hey, if you don't believe that, hey, ask the Lakers. That shot he hit on Tyson Chandler last week for the buzzer beater in Sacramento was huge.
So when we look at the Golden State Warriors, it's another night, and the box score is Kevin Durant with 13 points, Klay Thompson with 17, Steph Curry with 16, and they're in a dogfight with 70 points at the half, but only up by 1. Defensively, this team needs to find their rhythm to be able to shut teams down, right? That seems to be the problem, the difference past seasons in this year.
Well, I think it's twofold. I think the defense is one, their lack of rim protection. And I also think the fact that Klay Thompson has not been Klay Thompson and what we've come to expect from him, their margin for error is smaller. So they're not out shooting the lack of defense. And I think that team was so good shooting the ball for so long that they really almost shot out your heart a little bit. They took your legs out from under you because they would make big contested three after big contested three, and you would lose a little bit of your momentum and your faith. Now they can't blitzkrieg you in that same way. It's keeping teams in the game longer, and as they attack the rim, they're starting to feel more and more confident against this Warriors team.
When I look at this Golden State team, it just looks like there's a little bit of a chink in the armor just throughout this whole organization. When I'm just talking about, when you talk about up front, of course, they needed more help at the 5. With Jones being hurt, JaVale McGee going to the Lakers, they feel that. They don't have that dynamic roller. Then you look at the fact that guys like Draymond Green isn't playing well offensively. Klay Thompson isn't playing up to the level that he set offensively as a shooter. And then you have some of these little rifts, the rifts between Draymond and KD. I even still think there's maybe not a rift, but just a difference in philosophy between Kevin Durant and Steve Kerr. If you look at some of the comments that they've had in the media since November, I just really think that this team as a whole is just not where it needs to be. I think it's going to get there, and they have the most talent. But Golden State, this is probably the most vulnerable they've been.
Well, if you look at the Chicago juggernaut they had, the 6 championships, and it fell apart from within. Eventually, it just couldn't stay together long enough. And I think this is very much an interesting situation for them because they also have the potential for that. They are so good. The greatest threat to this Warriors team comes from within.
Plus, those Chicago teams, third year of a three-peat is always the hardest year. That, if you look at their regular seasons, those were the least amount of wins those teams always had.
Great point.
So when you scored 40 points in 5 consecutive games, is scoring 40 in the 6th consecutive game the hardest thing? Because popular players in the world hadn't been matched in years. In this episode of Storytime with Shaq, Bro Parrish talks to Diesel about that game and his relationship with Yao throughout their careers.
Tonight, the Rockets doing battle with the Los Angeles Lakers, and it's not just a game, it's a happening. I'm telling you folks, everybody who is anybody in the Houston area or in Texas is here tonight to see this battle. It's the first matchup ever between Yao Ming and Shaquille O'Neal.
What do you remember when you're first stepping in the circle with Yao Ming the first time you two played each other?
Knew nothing about him. Knew he was 7'5", 7'8", so you know, we got to Houston and yeah, I'm like, okay, they're trying to do like Rocky IV, Apollo Creed, all this and that. They want to give him the fanfare. So I said, okay. So, I wanted to give him a little finesse. I wanted to show him I was smooth. So I get on the post, and I go right there. He blocks it. Crowd go crazy. Well, you got that. You 7'8", you're supposed to block it. All right. Get another move. He blocks it. Third time he blocks it. Now I'm mad. Now I got to go in the playoff mode. Now I got to turn the power, turn it all the way up. It's the first time I got my shot blocked 3 times in a row. But what gave me the super confidence is, hey, you done killed Patrick Ewing. You done killed David Robinson. You neck and neck with your favorite player, Hakeem Olajuwon. He's a young kid. Turn it up. Go into that mode. But it was definitely a fun battle between me and him. Definitely respect him. Definitely respect his culture. I go to China 5-6 times a year. Whenever I'm in Shanghai, we always have tea. We always have great conversation. I just wish that he didn't have those injuries that he had. I would have loved to have more battles with him. He's probably the only guy that really tested me. And he tested me because he was 7'8", and he was hard to move. He couldn't stop me, but guess what? I couldn't stop him either. I put him in the category of a king. Like, hey, King, you can't stop me, but I know I can't stop that fadeaway. And he was the only guy that would catch it in the post and look at me. He just looked like, y'all just look at me, and then I'd come and try to block, and he just shoot right over me. Whoop. I'd be like, damn. But the funny thing, the first couple of times, I'm China, language barrier, I never knew he spoke English. So one day I hit him with a nice bing, bing on the baseline. Ha ha! Shot the boom. He's like, nice move, brother. And I was like, you talk English? He's like, yeah, talking. I was like, why you didn't tell me? He said, Shaq, you never talked to me. I was like, man. So after that moment, like, we, really, really became close.
Shaq, every game we played remind me of the old saying that what doesn't kill you make you stronger. Thank you for that.
And I was honored to be on the same stage as him during Hall of Fame weekend. When you talk about the history of basketball, long after we're gone, hopefully this conversation will still be around when East meets West.
Cool moment during that Hall of Fame ceremony. You actually got to put the jacket on. He was struggling. What happened exactly when he was trying to put on his jacket?
Well, he's a big dude, and when you get really big and you get older, you start to get stiff like a tree. So I'm sure his shoulders are kind of banged up a little bit. So I said, let me help you out, brother. But he's the only dude that makes me feel small. They say he's 7'6", but he's like my favorite convenience store. He's 7-Eleven all day. He's 7-Eleven.
Talk about his impact globally just on the game of basketball.
He's done a lot for China. He's done a lot for the game of international basketball. And, I don't think there's anybody bigger or better that could have done the job. When I go to China, everybody mentions Yao Ming. It's like a god over there.
It's incredible to see a guy half a foot taller than Shaq. Brendan, you played against Yao as well. What was it like? You're a 7-footer. The first time you step on a court with a guy half a foot taller than you when you're used to being half a foot taller than everybody else.
It was incredibly different for me because I'm used to being taller than everybody else, or at least being eye level. And with Yao Ming, it was something different. He was so tall. He had a height advantage. And something that was weird to me was I literally could not see the ball coming up the court when I was behind him. So, like, guys would be like, why didn't you call it the screen? Like, I couldn't see you. I really couldn't see him. And so Yao presented a lot of challenges, especially trying to guard him. He had some very good moves. He had counters. He had spins. He had some step backs. Did I make that? Okay, I got a couple of highlights off on Yao, but for the most part, it was very hard for me to guard Yao Ming because he really didn't have to jump much, and he kept the ball high. If you really watch Yao in his highlights, he just has that ball and he's moving it here, and you respond to his fake so much because he keeps the ball high. He's incredibly tall. He was very skilled, and he had a lot of stuff in his game, and Jeff Van Gundy did an excellent job of what I would call using weak side duck-in, something that we don't use nowadays in the game of basketball, where they would run a screen and roll on this side of the court with Tracy McGrady. And I would have to respond and come off of Yao's body. And then he would just duck in that lane and get big and catch the ball. And there was nothing I could do a lot of times. Playing against Yao was very challenging.
Griff, when you look at someone like Yao Ming and you think of his career, and it was a great career, but cut short due to injuries, how great could he have been if he would have stayed healthy?
Yeah, and I think about how good that Houston Rockets team could have been. They had the 07 team, I think, won 22 games in a row with T-Mac and Yao. And both of those guys had really significant injuries. I think that year only one of them was able to play even 60 games. I think Yao played 66 maybe. T-Mac may have played like 55. But they weren't ever able to stay on the court together. But when they did, they were so truly elite. We were really robbed of seeing the best of that team as well. The other thing that really stands out to me is when the legend of Yao was being told by Shaq, Yao will have been 8'3". He started at 7'6", and he called him 7'11" by the end.
That is pretty funny. I mean, I guess for Shaq, he's not used to looking up, so then he just adds inches to that, right? Well, that's a former Rocket great. The ascension up the MVP ladder for current Rocket. We'll tell you who's moving on up. I think you know who it is. That's up next.